Hi, everyone. We're going to get started in just a moment while more people get logged in. Okay, hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for this OpenText webinar, expert session, Managing the Lifecycle of Your Critical Documents. My name is Sean Harrigan, and I'll be the moderator for today's session. We have some great dialogue that's going to be taking place today, so you don't want to miss this. But before we get started, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items. You'll notice on your console window a few engagement windows. All the windows are movable and resizable, so feel free to move them around, maximize them, get the most out of your space. We also encourage you to ask questions during the webinar. You can do this through the Ask a Question box. We will have a live Q&A session at the end of the webinar, so feel free to submit those now, during the webinar, towards the end. We do capture all the questions, so if we do run out of time, we will answer your questions later via email. For the best viewing experience, we encourage you to use a high-speed and stable internet connection. And we do encourage you to close any programs or browser sessions running in the background. These events are bandwidth intensive, so do what you can with that. And my one piece of IT advice is if the audio or the slides are getting wonky or off, go ahead and click F5 or refresh your browser or your screen, and that will straighten everything out for you. A recording of the event will be available after the event concludes. So yeah, with that, now it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers for today. Richard Lowe, the IT Manager of Learning and Content Management, Center of Excellence at QuidelOrtho, and filling in for Aaron Norman, who unfortunately is out sick today, is Steve Wagner, our very own lead solution consultant for the business process extended ECM add-ons here at OpenText. So I will now pass to Steve to start us off.
Thank you so much, Sean, and welcome everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending upon your location on the planet. Today, we're here to speak with Richard about some of our extended ECM add-ons that we have with OpenText, and specifically OpenText Document Control. And we're going to elaborate on this over the course of the next 45, 50 minutes and take Q&A about this because their experience is definitely something to be heard. We also have, with our package of business process capabilities that come out of the box, ready configured functionality, quality control, and OpenText project control. Now, when we talk about OpenText document control, we're really talking about the control of essentially documents that are considered controlled documents themselves. And depending upon the organization or the company that you work within, there's a myriad of definitions that would come with what are controlled documents. OpenText document control is dedicated to ensuring that these documents can experience an entire life cycle from their creation to their disposition out of the enterprise with all of the information associated with that life cycle tied to it and easily accessible to not just the users and owners and reviewers and approvers, but also any need to have it called upon by regulators, legal reasons, or what have you. When we speak to what is a controlled document, these tend to be the most common types used by the customers that have engaged us for the document control solution. This is not an exhaustive list, just the one where it's been used the most. And you can see that beyond policies and procedures and classic centralized corporate functions, it gets out into marketing and operations and sales, where their content itself is also controlled content. There is no limit as to the types of documents that can fit under the umbrella of OpenText document control. When we talk about extended ECM and document control sitting on top of that, we know that OpenText itself provides all of the functional capability to manage that particular document and its state throughout its life cycle. What document control does is it gives the capability to ensure that a document lifecycle can be just as auditable as the state of the document throughout its existence inside of a company. When you have these two together, you have complete single line of sight of everything that that document has been through, meaning the people that have touched it, what those actions were, along with the state of that document from the moment of its creation through every single version and final disposition out of the company. Now, this is accomplished with document control through our low-code adaptable application that basically turns what used to be actual development and customization into simple configuration exercises to allow your business to have their process for controlling their controlled documents in a lifecycle model tailored to your specific needs. In this particular case, we'll be talking with our friend Richard from, QuidelOrtho. Hello, Richard, and I want to thank you for joining me today and agreeing to talk with us through how you are using OpenText Document Control for extended ECM to manage your content in various business departments. Firstly, can you tell us a little bit about QuidelOrtho and your role there?
Okay, sure. It's good to be aboard, and thank you for inviting me to have this opportunity to speak about the product. We're highly excited. QuidelOrtho is a medical device company, highly regulated. We are a worldwide organization that has audiences in multiple countries. So, we're probably like many people on board. Our company has the need to control documents, and so I'd like to talk a little bit about it today.
Fantastic. Can you believe that our partnership started back in early 2019 when Ortho Clinical, as you were then, started looking for one platform to manage your document types within various business departments? What were the business drivers behind the review of your content platforms? And what was it the need to have more control of your content at that time?
Well, it's funny because our company has gone through several changes. Quidel started out as Johnson & Johnson, went into Ortho Clinical Diagnostics, as you highlighted, back in 2019, now QuidelOrtho. The needs at that time was that there was a lot of change in the company, a lot of turmoil. And our quality regulatory compliance groups identified some key issues during those turmoil change periods where documents were not easily accessible, hard to identify which version was the correct or most current version. So there was a lot of drivers at that time in terms of how we manage documents as a company.
So back then, you had a footprint of OpenText solutions. What was in place?
So, our first introduction, OpenText was brought into the company through an SAP solution to handle SAP storage. And so extended ECM was a product, and it wasn't, no one knew in terms of how can this tool, we knew it was powerful, but no one could really get their, heads around it in terms of how can we use this platform? We had probably less than 20 users in the system. We had a few thousand records, maybe 200 sessions a month at the time. And so single server. So very low profile back in 2018. Great, powerful tool, but no one knew what to do with it.
I'd like to explore a bit more about OpenText document control and why it's an important component of your system. How did the business recognize that there were issues that needed to be addressed, and what were those issues?
Well, the the primary issue that, like most companies, coming from, especially the company's old years and decades of old methodology, manually storing documents and on people's computers, local hard drives, file shares, SharePoint, various customized websites. So again, at the time when Ortho Clinical broke away from Johnson & Johnson, again, there was a lot of turmoil, and all these things started to come to the surface, that even between the same department but a different geographic location, in the US teams were doing it one way, and internationally teams were doing it a different way. And I think that's something I think everyone can kind of relate to in terms of their organizations. Like all things, is fragmentation is always a common aspect. And so again, we were looking for a solution, and we looked at many options. We looked at a lot of different, SharePoint was always on thing. Well, why don't we use SharePoint? That's a place to store files, and SharePoint is, to me, like file share. It has its pluses and it has its purposes, and our company uses that. But we were looking for a utility that was inexpensive, or cost effective, should I say, easy to use, adaptability, right? A lot of systems came in, but the adoption rate was low, hard to use. So that was an important factor. The third is, again, control, regulatory. Nobody spends money on document control unless it's kind of driven to by some kind of cost benefit or regulatory compliance. So, regulatory compliance was a key factor in deciding and looking at content systems, and document control. When we highlighted that, it was kind of addressed all the needs. We had the platform, OpenText, powerful, but not easy. Not, from let's just get started with storing and controlling documents. So the document control application really put that front end and took away all the work on development, and really kind of made that package available to us, and addressed a lot of all the different stakeholder needs.
So, sorry, anything else on that?
No, I mean, we could expand on. I could talk for hours probably on the thing, but the main thing is really truly, adaptability, ease of use, cost effectiveness, and regulatory compliance. And I think that's something that every company kind of strives for. I would add then on to that, because remember, like most companies don't think about efficiency. Yeah, efficiency is nice, process unification nice, but at the time of decision making, teams don't really think in that fashion. They don't think about wanting to improve process, because they think of complexity when they think about improvement. So really, the drivers is ease of use, cost effectiveness, compliance. But then the best part is, and this is probably later in the discussion, is sort of like, how do you all the benefits that came from it. So I think that we could talk later on that.
Were there any leading departments that were raising their hand to address the problems they had for efficiently managing their documents?
I would, straight off, it's quality, regulatory compliance department.
Okay.
You can't, companies are driven, when it comes to content management and regulatory, your quality departments are going to be your primary resource, because they have the background, the expertise in terms of, say, documentation and control, right? So when you think of control, you think of regulatory or quality, right? QC. But then, a really, I would say, a very important factor in any company is cross-functional teams. So the project was really, brought on and driven through the quality teams, but what made it really grow and supported was our company's cross-functional teams, those teams that just don't look at, oh, it's a compliance need, we have to bring it in because we got audited or this or that. It's those cross-functional teams that say, hey, this aside from compliance and regulatory, there's efficiencies, there's cost effectiveness in terms of using it here to manage these documents. So cross-functional team support is really vital, in terms of any type of content management, initiative.
Okay, makes sense. Do you have a favorite use case that you'd like to tell us about?
Yeah, the probably to demonstrate technical documentation. Here's a great case, and this is looking at things today of, we have a lot of documents, and it's easy, and when we talk about content management, of adding documents in, but the big thing is, how do we expose those documents to our customers, to our employees, to our partners? And so we have several examples, but the one to highlight is our public one, which is our technical documents of how we utilize the document control systems to manage it, and then how do we get it exposed in a controlled fashion? And that's the key thing, is this all goes within a controlled process, and get it out to the public.
Fascinating. Part of this, what I'm hearing from you, is that how important it is to control the metadata as well as the content itself, right? The metadata that's driving the process. There's a lot of data that you're managing. What does it get used for?
This is one of those shocking statistics. Metadata, right? Everybody, when we think of content management, the old philosophy was always just managing files. Oh, well, we need to expose files, out to a site. Well, control and exposure is only possible if you have meaningful metadata, right? Data that goes with that physical file. Going back to what's my base case example is, in the old days, everything was manual. Someone copies a file to a website. Someone manually types in a paragraph on the website, but completely disconnected from content. In today's solutions and some of the things we could demonstrate is with the teams now getting involved with assigning meaningful data within the content process, within that document control system. The capabilities of using that data, of exposing that data and transporting that data just exponentially grow. We go from an old intranet site, we now merge, company changes, we have a new site. Well, guess what? Everything is automated. Everything is in the content system with the metadata. So we don't have to recreate what we did on the old legacy platform. It's just now a shifting of a pointer, and the data goes along with it. And so that's the power of metadata, is that cost, and that's where also the cost comes in, right? So in the manual method, a lot of resources, a lot of effort in terms of moving things. And now literally with the use of the document control and adding on metadata, it's literally just say, we're going to point to this site now, and let's expose the data there. So it's really affordable.
Nice. So you had mentioned a little bit earlier, right, that part of this publication, right, a subset of your documents that are under a controlled space actually get published out to your customers today. Would you be willing to show us how your customers get access to the outputs and at least a subset of the process, right, that exposes documents to them?
Sure. Let me share my screen here. Not sure if you can see my screen, if that's sharing yet.
Looks good.
Great. So this is, our public, we have Quidel, like all companies, have a public-facing website. This particular view of the website is specific to technical documents. And so, this is pretty exciting in terms of, I've been in industry for about 30 years now. Everything from compliance to research and manufacturing. And the greatest part of working in the content area is seeing all the effort of managing content. It's easy to put content in. Well, I wouldn't say easy, but unifying content, centralizing information, putting metadata on. But I get excited by consumption. I'm more of a, let's see the end result, right? What's the benefit to the consumer, to the end users? And so, in the past, our customers, the public, would have to go through maybe 5 different websites just to get information. You add on to it where you have a merger or an acquisition and everything comes in, and it just gets even worse, right? So this solution that we had for using information managed within our content system, centralizing that information, this is like the front end of the fruit or the benefit of such a system and process. So technical documents, if I go into, I'll just choose, for example, safety data sheets. And again, the metadata here would be different for whatever company you're working with. This is just what our company had decided to expose. But it shows how quickly, if I were looking for a specific product safety data sheet or item, it's literally just a matter of clicks to get to documents. And to view a document, just click on here. So we have on a given day, we have maybe about 80,000 technical documents. What this kind of demonstrates is that mixture of ease of access and level of control. You don't see 80,000. We determine by metadata what we want to expose and who we want to expose it to. This example is a public document, publicly available, but it shows how fast and how quick you can get to the information. People who want to see more detail, we expose some of the detail about it. And there's a lot of benefits, because now that this is a great example of, this is at the very first level of content management of metadata assigned to a file, exposing it to the public. But the future possibilities of 360 feedback, now we could have our customers or employees, technically we could program in a feedback mechanism that brings that information back into the content system for the content managers to act upon, maybe an improvement needed or things like that, and then expose it, then bring it back out to the public. So this is kind of like an exciting example of using document control.
Thank you so much. Earlier, you had mentioned the user experience, the user being who is using the document control system to actually be able to expose those documents you've shared with us, right? Let's look at some parts of the system together so that you can talk about the importance of some of the features, some of which we partnered together to add to the product back in 2019, just to confirm to the audience that this is not the QuidelOrtho system, but rather, right, what you'll be seeing from me is a demo system that we use with our customers and sometimes our ongoing new prospects as well as ongoing customers to help visualize some of the capabilities of the environment. So let me know, please, Richard, if you're seeing my screen.
Yes, and that's sort of like the exciting part is it's not about any one company. It's about the tool of, people often go, well, what can I do with that? What can I do with document controller? What are the real potential capabilities? And so getting to see some examples is always, a great to see.
Right. So here we're starting with the registry, which is really your entry point, right?
Correct. And this is, this gets back to the part about why, one application is chosen over the other. And I'll be honest, everybody knows there's a lot of options. There's products like Windchill and things like come out, and most companies will have multiple content systems, and that's okay because things have different purposes. But what we've seen over the course of 5-6 years is what is the benefit of document control, and this registry approach of why we chose this particular product line. And there's a lot of options, but document control, it's a great easy interface. It handles all the requirements that we need for document control, for assigning metadata, right? Controlling revisions, being able to report for regulatory purposes. And this registry kind of encompasses what the end user, like those individuals who actually have to perform the work. They have to, day-to-day manage those documents. So this registry is the front side, very easy to use and has a lot of information.
So this registry also is not just a static dashboard. Let's pick a document and see what lies beneath the surface. And here we can see the entire document lifecycle. So if I go into one that actually has a couple of versions associated with it, this must be important to the business.
Great. And the key thing is, right up front, it brings a lot of the information or metadata that's entered into the system. There are views within here to look at past revisions. In this particular screen, again, audit trails. In terms of case example, we get questions from various teams, quality, regulatory, and audit comes in. Somebody's just asking, I need to find out when this document was approved by this person. It's a quick question. You could go right down to as much detail as you want within seconds, literally. And it's all available, to see that, information. So it's quite a powerful UI and tool. So very, very useful. In fact, if you click on, let's see, if we click back, if we click back on that tool, perfect. And again, it gives a lot of information. And that's the key thing. It's a lot of information, but it's also summarized. So you could get too much information. So the part that's great about the registry is at least what we've been finding is you drill down. You start off at a high level with the key attributes that you determine are important, and you can then go down into the details. So it's been very, very useful. Business teams, very positive feedback.
Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about publishing documents out and what benefits you've realized from controlling your documents through the publication process.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
So let's talk a bit about let me get my words together. Publishing documents out. What benefits have you realized from controlling your documents through this formal process, right, of being able to publish, right, while you're inside here? Because where we are at right now we're at an effective document, but if you're in a draft mode or it's in review or approve, right, it's going through that life cycle process until it formally gets published and exposed, for instance, out there on that website you shared with us.
Great. Yeah, I mean, so, and that's, this goes back to why did we choose a document control? We had a need for flexibility in workflows, right? And the workflows that are within the document control system really flex with what our business process needs. So you have your, creating a document, revising a document. Sometimes you just want to update metadata, right? So you have a workflow just for updating metadata where it requires less approvals or review. And then, of course, lifecycle, management, document obsolescence, right? The great part about editing documents is the ease, right? So in our implementation, taking a standard example of creating a document, you have, you're going to send it out, you're going to create a document, and editing it is very simple. The links, we open up a document, it opens right within the Office application. The changes you make and you close the document get automatically saved back into the workflow. But the great part is sometimes not everything fits within that box, right? Sometimes you need to edit things out of the system. And so again, what we found here is, and you can see on the screen, you could always download the document, make changes outside of the system if needed. Sometimes it's third-party process. But then the document author brings back those revisions into the system in a controlled fashion. So the best part is everything from a OpenText perspective and content server perspective is tracked, is saved. All versions uploaded are saved and accessible if need be. So it's really, again, easy interface, but it's flexible. Very flexible.
So in our journey together, configurability was also high on the requirements, and I believe it becomes more and more important now. However, you're more likely to hear about low code. Over the years of our partnership, we've each have taken on a responsibility for different types of configuration. In fact, the bulk changes, that we had to create was part of that. I'd like to hear more about how your team took to the task of doing some of the bulk change configuration.
So, that's always, in terms of just change in general, if we start there and then work our way up, we have a development, not every company has development teams. But even though we have development teams, we don't want to spend our time developing, right? We're a medical device company, not a software company. So the product solution is highly configurable, and they offer tools in terms of that take away the development aspect of things and makes it more configurable. One of the needs is like let's take example of someone leaves the company, right? So you have this control system, it's tied to a document owner, right? What happens when that person leaves and they have like 40, 50, 100, maybe 200 documents associated to that individual, and they left the company. Or they changed to a different department. There's a need to change the owner. And so the flexibility here was, it offered the tools and the features in terms of being able to handle those type of needs, like the bulk change. And so the example that Steve is showing here is probably one of the most used features, I think, or benefit is that ability to make a change to a piece of metadata and then execute that change against specific documents. So very useful.
Perfect. Did your team ever use the form builder to help evolve your footprint of user experience, right, necessary for you guys to experience the success you did with the document control functionality?
Yeah, I'm not sure what familiarity the audience has with with all the product features. But what Form Builder is like is sort of like a great tool for administrators of the system, right? So let's say someone says today, I don't want to call this field review date. I want to call it next review date, or I want to make, reorganize certain things. Oh my gosh, in a lot of systems, that could be a chore. That could be a development task, a project, a lot of cost, a lot of money. The great part with Form Builder is a built-in utility within the application that handles that form aspect, that allows you to hide fields, rearrange fields, add fields, rename fields. It lets you do a lot, and it's literally a configuration. So again, low code, low effort, and so we found those type of features very useful, because not everything is about the document owner. There's administration aspects that come into play in terms of an application like this.
Right, understood. Two more items before we get to our wrap-up point here shortly, but let's talk a little bit about reporting, right, associated with the product.
So I'm 30 years. My mindset is operational. It's great to put data in, great to assign stuff, but at the end of the day, you want to be able to get data out. And I'm not going to get into all the capabilities, but you can get data out quite easily. One of the most kind of, I would say, used features, or very useful features that we've heard from our clients is you can, right from the registry, export this to an Excel sheet. And you could, let's say you're in a meeting or discussion, you have an upcoming audit, or you're having a discussion, you can export a list out, filter it out in Excel, where it might be more familiar to you. And you can have those discussions outside of the system about the documents. But that capability to export that metadata in a report is very useful.
So for the audience that's watching, this set of columns in the registry is also completely configurable to the attribution needs of whatever it is that you want to use it for. So even though we have, at least in our demo environment, a relatively static footprint that is pretty common, right? Tell me about the title and who's the owner and its status and what have you. Any attribute that you define inside of the system to be captured in the lifecycle can actually be listed as a column here to then extend itself into an exportable field and value, right, for use elsewhere, like you mentioned.
Yeah. And that's outside of like integration stuff. This is like specifically like, I'm a user, I need to get some data out on an Excel sheet so I could go to my meeting. This is the great use of that feature.
Super. So we can't finish up our conversation without mentioning Microsoft SharePoint and the fact that many organizations are M365 centric, right? How do you folks, how does it fit into your environment, right? How do these two items, this functionality, complement the other?
I mean, so again, like every company is diverse and different. I mean, our company is the same. We use Office 365. We're a Microsoft shop, like many companies. In terms of what, at least again, it goes back to what we look for is flexibility. Can a system be flexible? And so, on-prem, on a cloud-based, you're always going to have hybrids. And so we've, I would say over the past 5 years, 6 years, right, of using the system, it's adapted well, like managing documents, adding in control. The best part is in say, let's say you're managing a document and you're editing it, right off the bat, as I mentioned, you can use the built-in feature which opens directly the document within your Office document on your client. You make changes, it updates. But again, OpenText offers, and this product offers the flexibility to export it out, work in external systems, bring it back in. There's integrations that I know are possible. So, we've not had any issue in terms of how it fits within our global environment, with both cloud and on-prem solutions, and Office being one of them. So we hadn't had any issues.
Good, good. So earlier in this discussion, right, you told us what the architecture was like in 2019, right over there. How's it changed since then?
Well, I mean, we have close to 2.8 billion points of metadata values, 2.8 billion. Over close to 9 million documents altogether in the system, versions and all that stuff. So it's grown in quite substantially. And that's kind of like the thing is, we started off very small, and that's the thing is like, it's always in steps. Organizations it's not all or nothing. We went in to try to solve one problem. And then as that succeeded, the adoption grew, and we were able to utilize it for more and more document types and different processes. So, it's been quite flexible in the growth. So, and that's the key thing too, is not just like in terms of like, along with growth of the documents, you have, hardware, right? You have the servers behind it that make everything possible. And so, the whole architecture is very flexible and has grown with us as our data needs have grown. So very flexible.
So are there any future plans around document control?
We're an on-prem, a lot of our things are on-prem, but we're moving to the cloud. That's like, that's one of the things in our roadmaps. Again, one of the big things is we have data in the system. The greatest part is once you have data in the system and it's controlled and you have the metadata, there's so many avenues for growth in how that data could be consumed and used and integrated. We are looking for that 360 type of approach. That's always the thing is we have control. That's a check. We have easy integrations to expose the data, check. And really the next thing is now that we can expose it easily, let's bring in feedback directly back to those content managers and really see the full benefit of a life cycle of a document. So, that's sort of the future growth.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Richard, for everything you've shared, your time today. Let's move over to some Q&A from the audience if there's any out there.
Yeah, thank you both for that. Please submit any additional questions you have. We do have a few here for you. So let's see here. This might be best suited for Richard. How flexible is the solution in terms of adding, changing a field in a form? And is this difficult?
Funny you say that, but like last week we had a request and needed to update one of the names on the fields, and it literally was a 1 minute ordeal. It's that simple. It's just navigating, going to the form, going to the field. Of course, the paperwork probably took longer than the actual task of doing it, but it's that simple.
Wonderful. Okay. Another question came in here. Will the webinar be available to share view later? Yes. You'll be able to log back in with the same link you used and watch it on demand. So stay tuned for that. This question might be suited for Steve. Does this application support multiple languages?
It does. What you saw today is in English. The same way that OpenText itself supports multiple language, we currently are in the process of deploying the same footprint for document control in the major languages that are in use in our sales areas, right? The European languages, as well as some in Asia.
Excellent. This question, Richard, probably back to you for this. How quick was the adoption, and have you any learnings you could share from both the deployment and adoption?
Adoption goes a little slow at first in terms of, it's a new process for people, right? Everybody's tied to old things. I think, but then once people see the benefit, then the adoption goes rapidly, right? So there's like this complete scale that shoots up. And that's, I would say, again, the example I have is, in our company was, no one knew what to do with the system, right? No one, you have a powerful system, but what happened was document control was that UI that made that adoption possible. So I think, focus on the ease and the UI of, those content managers, right? Content managers being able to edit and control those documents. But then the adoption grew because the whole OpenText platform and stuff is so easily integratable, right? To get at that information, that it became, that benefit alone of being able to get at your data and then expose it, that again is the second factor for adoption, right? So putting data in, easy, finding the information, easy adoption, but then being able to easily integrate and get information to downstream processes and systems was the second major part. But you also need to have stakeholders. You want to support your stakeholders. It needs dedication from leadership. Our leadership at the company, had a directive. They're like, we want to consolidate information, reduce redundant processes, unify processes. There's a clear vision, right? And so if you're enabled by your leadership with those tasks and given that power, then you could see what, the results of that leadership and that control play into the adoption and growth of your content system. So, and that's what we've had at our company.
Thank you for that. We did have an audience member send in, French is already available. They have it in France and running it in French. So thank you for that.
Thank you indeed.
There was another question here. I think they're trying to ask, how is the application licensed?
It's licensed both on-prem and in the cloud, right? So if you're an existing OpenText customer with extended ECM licensing, right, you can buy the document control licenses per your need in terms of the number of users. It's essentially one-to-one. And the cloud model is subscription-based and is available today. If you have any deeper dive questions surrounding that, I'd encourage you to reach out to me and we can get you in contact with the right person, right, specifically in the area in which you reside, especially if you're over in Europe versus Asia or the States.
Okay, thank you for that. That looks to be all the questions. I don't see any more in here. So I guess we'll go ahead and call that a wrap. That's all we have for today. Thank you to our audience for your great participation and all the questions. Continue to submit questions. We will see those and we will respond directly via email. And again, please note that the replay of today's event will be available on demand shortly. And we do invite you to share it with your colleagues. So thank you again. And this concludes our event. Have a great day.
Thank you all.
Great. Thank you.